Today we are diving deep into one of the most surprising and extraordinary coins in United States history, a coin that millions of people have handled but only a tiny handful truly understand. This is the story of the 1959 D Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin so rare, so unusual, and so valuable in certain conditions that it has shocked collectors all over the world, with auction prices reaching as high as $60,354. So sit back, relax, and listen closely, because by the end of this video you will know exactly why this ordinary-looking penny can be worth life-changing money, what unique details make it so valuable, how you can identify one in your own home, and how a simple penny from 1959 turned into one of the most unexpected treasures in modern coin history. To begin this story, we have to travel back to the year 1959, an extremely important year for the Lincoln cent. This was not just any year in American coinage. It was the 50-year anniversary of the Lincoln cent series, and to honor this milestone, the United States Mint made a major historic design change. From 1909 all the way to 1958, the reverse of the Lincoln cent displayed the two wheat ears design, known today as the wheat penny. But in 1959 that design officially ended. The Mint introduced a brand new reverse featuring the Lincoln Memorial, a design created to celebrate the legacy of Abraham Lincoln and to modernize the appearance of the coin. This shift made 1959 a major transition year because it marked the end of one of the most beloved coin designs in American history and the beginning of a new modern era. The Denver Mint produced an enormous number of pennies in 1959, more than 1.2 billion coins. So naturally, collectors at the time believed that these coins were extremely common. Nobody expected anything rare or unusual to happen, and most people never paid attention to the small details of the coins in their hands. But as coin experts know, a coin does not become valuable because of how many were made, it becomes valuable because of how few survive in top condition or because of the unique errors and varieties that slip through during minting. This is exactly what happened with the 1959 D Lincoln cent. So now the question becomes, what makes this penny worth more than $60,000? Surprisingly, one of the biggest factors is condition. While over 1 billion were made, only a tiny number survive today in the highest possible mint state grades. The reason these are so rare is simple. These pennies were used for everyday transactions. People carried them in pockets, purses, wallets, drawers, and jars. They were not protected, stored, or preserved. Most became scratched, worn, or discolored. By the time collectors realized the potential value of early Lincoln Memorial cents, it was already too late, because nearly all of the original 1959 D cents had circulated heavily. Today, finding one in near-perfect mint state condition is extremely difficult. At high-level auctions, collectors fight to own one because these coins represent the very beginning of the Lincoln Memorial design series. But condition is only part of the story. The real excitement surrounding the 1959 D penny comes from the extremely rare errors and varieties known to exist. Even though the U.S. Mint has strict quality control, mistakes do happen, and when they do, those mistakes can transform a simple coin into a fortune. In the case of the 1959 D penny, there are several types of errors that collectors seek, and some of them have reached astonishing price levels. One of the most famous issues linked to this year is the rare transitional or controversial variety, where some people claim to have found a 1959 D cent with the wheat penny reverse. Although the authentication and debate surrounding that coin lasted for years, it brought global attention to the 1959 D penny and made collectors look much more closely at this date. Even though that particular coin is surrounded by debate, it made people realize that unexpected things can happen at the mint, and sometimes a coin can survive that simply should not exist. Other errors that make the 1959 D penny extremely valuable include major die breaks, strong doubled dies, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, and broad strikes. Coins showing dramatic misalignments or heavy doubling on the date, lettering, or mint mark are incredibly sought after. Some of these error pennies have sold for more than $10,000, and when the error is combined with top-grade mint state condition, the price can climb even higher. Now let's talk about the grading scale, because this is where real money comes in. Coins are graded from poor, which is the lowest, to mint state 60 through mint state 70, which represent the highest quality. For a 1959 penny to reach a value of $60,354, it must be graded at the very top of the scale by professional grading companies like PCGS or NGC. These are the official authorities in evaluating coin conditions. A penny that looks shiny to the naked eye may still only grade mint state 63 or 64. But the coins worth the huge money are mint state 67 or higher. These coins must have nearly flawless surfaces, no noticeable scratches, strong luster, and perfect strike details. Many collectors underestimate how rare it is to find a coin from 1959 in such high grade. Remember, these coins were never meant to be saved, they were meant to be spent. So when even one coin survives for 60+ years in pristine condition, it becomes extremely valuable because it represents a near-perfect example of a historically important coin. Let's take a moment to talk about why collectors love the Lincoln Cent series. It is one of the longest-running coin designs in American history, and almost every household has owned Lincoln pennies. They are iconic, familiar, historical, and represent over a century of American culture. The 1959 penny marks the first year of the second half of the series known as the Lincoln Memorial era. This alone makes the coin important, but when you combine it with rare errors, unusual varieties, and top-grade survival, the value skyrockets. Now let's shift to what you should look for in your own change or coin collection. Start with examining the date and mint mark. You need 1959 with AD under the date, meaning it was minted in Denver. Then you should inspect the coin for any doubling. Look closely at the 1, the 9, the 5, and the 9 in the date. Check the mint mark for doubling or repunching. Look at the lettering in the words Liberty and In God We Trust. Strong doubling can easily turn a 1-cent coin into a 4-figure collectible. After that, examine the reverse. Look at the Lincoln Memorial building lines. Any shifts, splits, doubling, or distortions could indicate a rare variety. Next, check for major striking errors like off-center strikes. If the design is shifted significantly but the date is still visible, these coins are extremely valuable. Also check the edges for die breaks or cracks. These can sometimes produce a raised blob of metal known as a cud, and collectors will pay huge premiums for large dramatic cuds. Another thing that adds mystery to the 1959 penny is that even though billions were minted, only a handful of high-grade quality coins exist today. That means the average person has a better chance of finding a valuable coin if they look carefully through rolls of pennies from banks, coin jars, coin collections, or inherited estates. Many incredible finds have been discovered by accident. A person might inherit an old coin jar from their grandparents and discover that a shiny-looking penny from 1959 is worth thousands. A very important part of the modern coin market is investor demand. In the last decade, more people have entered the hobby of coin collecting than ever before. Social media, online marketplaces, and increasing awareness of rare coins have pushed prices higher. Rare coins like the top-graded 1959 cent are now seen as alternative investments. These coins have historical value, limited supply, and a strong collector base. This combination is why the highest-graded example of the 1959 penny reached $60,354 in recent auctions. Now let's explore the full history of the design changes that make this coin even more special. When the Lincoln Memorial Reverse was introduced in 1959, it was designed by Frank Gasparo. Unlike the wheat penny, which featured 2 simple wheat stalks, the new reverse displayed the entire Lincoln Memorial building in Washington, D.C. What made this design unique is that if you look closely with magnification, you can actually see a tiny statue of Abraham Lincoln seated inside the memorial. This detail surprised many collectors because it was an incredibly small engraving to include on a 1-cent coin. The first year of any new design is generally more desired by collectors, and the 1959 cent represents that first year for the new reverse. Today's video is going to take you deep inside the world of rare and valuable Lincoln 1-cent coins, and we are focusing on one of the most surprising and expensive pennies from the late 1970s, the 1977 no-mint mark Lincoln cent. You may think pennies from the 70s are common, something everyone has seen and used, but what if I told you that one single 1977 penny without a mint mark has sold for more than $60,000? Yes, you heard that right. A coin that most people overlook, a coin that millions of Americans carried in their pockets without thinking twice, can today bring a massive amount of money if it has the right combination of rarity, condition, and strong collector demand. And in today's video, we are going to break down everything you need to know about this valuable cent. We will explore its history, why it is rare, what errors and varieties make it valuable, how to identify them, what grades bring the highest value, and the current market value that has reached an unbelievable $60,354. The story of the 1977 Lincoln penny begins like any other year in the series. The coin continues to feature Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a design created by Victor David Brenner in 1909 to honor Lincoln's 100th birthday. The reverse in 1977 still displayed the Lincoln Memorial, a design by Frank Gasparo that had been used since 1959. These coins were struck as part of normal circulation, with billions produced between the Philadelphia and Denver mints. The thing that sets the 1977 no-mint mark penny apart is not that it was produced in small numbers, but that extremely high-quality examples that survive today are incredibly rare. Most of these coins were used day to day, passed through registers, piggy banks, pockets, and drawers for decades. Very few survived in perfect condition, with full details and clear luster. That's exactly why collectors go crazy when they find what appears to be a flawless 1977 penny. Now, before we talk about the $60,000 price tag, let's explore why no-mint mark pennies exist in the first place. Coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint do not carry a mint mark, which is why this coin is known as the 1977 no-mint mark penny. These coins were produced in massive quantities, but only a handful survive today in extremely high mint state conditions. You may find thousands of 1977 pennies around, but they are usually circulated, scratched, worn down, or faded. To bring top dollar, the coin must be preserved almost perfectly. Collectors look for certain features that separate a normal penny from a treasure. The most important factors include strong strike quality, sharp detail on Lincoln's hair and beard, no scratches, clean surfaces, full original luster, and no discoloration. Even tiny spots or dull areas can drop the value dramatically. In the world of coin collecting, condition is everything, and the grading scale from the Professional Coin Grading Service or Numismatic Guarantee Company plays the biggest role in setting the price. Grades range from 1 to 70, with 70 being a flawless coin. For the 1977 penny, anything above mint state 65 is extremely rare. A grade of MS 67 is almost unheard of, and one of these coins reached the spectacular price of $60,354 at auction. That is the kind of coin collectors dream of finding. But what specifically makes that one coin so valuable? First, the strike quality was absolutely perfect. The details on Lincoln's portrait were crisp and clear. The coin had full, original, strong red luster, the most desirable color designation known as RD. The surface had no scratches, no fingerprints, and no marks from machines or circulation. It was preserved as if it left the mint yesterday. That level of perfection simply does not exist in most 1977 pennies, and when collectors compete to own the finest example known, the price skyrockets. This is why, even though the coin is not rare in quantity, it becomes incredibly rare in perfection. Let's now go deeper into the history of these cents. In 1977, the United States Mint produced more than 4.4 billion pennies. These were struck for everyday use, so no one at the time imagined that future collectors would fight over a single example. The U.S. Mint did not create any special versions or proof versions in Philadelphia that year. All the high-quality proofs for collectors came from the San Francisco Mint. That means that the Philadelphia strikes were intended for everyday use, which explains why so few survive in near-perfect condition today. When a coin is struck for circulation, it is handled by machines, dropped into bags, transported, stored, and released into the public. Each step increases the chances of damage. Even microscopic contact marks reduce the grade. So the challenge for collectors is to find a 1977 penny that somehow avoided all this damage for nearly 50 years. That alone makes it rare, Now let's talk about varieties and errors. The 1977 no mint mark penny is known for having some interesting collectible errors that can boost the value even more. One error is the double die obverse, where the date, lettering, or Lincoln's eye may appear slightly doubled. Though not extremely common, when found in high grades this variety can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Another error is the off-center strike, where the coin was not properly aligned during minting. If the off-center strike is significant and the date is still visible, the value jumps. Die cracks, die chips, and clipped planchets are also known in the 1977 series, and these can also increase the value depending on the condition. Collectors today are more active than ever. Thousands of new collectors enter the hobby every year, especially with videos, social media, and online auctions helping educate people. As more collectors compete for high-quality coins, the prices for the top examples grow rapidly. This is one reason why the 1977 penny has climbed so much in value. Years ago, it was worth only a few $100s in top condition. Then collectors realized how few flawless examples exist. Prices rose into the thousands, then tens of thousands, and now the highest recorded sale sits at $60,354. This brings us to the current market value. Today, if you find a 1977 no mint mark penny in average circulated condition, it might be worth only 1 or 2 cents. If you find a nice uncirculated example, it may be worth a few dollars. But a high-grade mint state red example, especially MS65 or MS66, can be worth hundreds or thousands. And that ultra-rare MS67 example is what brought the massive value of $60,354. That is life-changing money for a coin most people would ignore. You may now be wondering, how can you tell if your 1977 penny is valuable? The first thing to do is look for originality. A valuable penny should not be cleaned or polished. Cleaning destroys the surface and kills the value. Next, check the color. A red coin is worth the most, followed by red-brown, and then brown. A red example from 1977 is surprisingly rare, especially if it has full mint luster. Then, check for marks. Use a magnifying glass and look for scratches, where on Lincoln's cheek and jaw, weak strike areas, or dull spots. If your coin looks fresh, shiny, and flawless, you may have something special. Many viewers ask how they can sell a coin like this. The best way to sell a rare penny is to get it graded by a trusted service like PCGS or NGC. These companies give the coin an official grade and protect it in a plastic holder. Once graded, the coin can be sold at major auctions, online platforms, or through coin dealers. Graded coins always bring higher prices than raw ungraded coins. If you ever suspect you have an extremely high-quality 1977 penny, do not spend it, do not clean it, and do not handle it roughly. Keep it safe, store it properly, and consider getting it professionally graded. Collectors today search rolls of pennies, old jars, estate collections, bank boxes, and pocket change in hopes of finding rare treasures. Many people have found rare coins hidden in old collections or jars that have been sitting for years. The thrill of finding a valuable coin keeps collectors motivated, and this is exactly why the 1977 penny continues to gain attention. Imagine finding a coin worth $60,000 in a jar that has been sitting in the kitchen for decades. It happens, and it can happen to anyone. The 1977 penny represents more than just money. It represents history, craftsmanship, and the beauty of numismatics. Each coin tells a story of its journey through time. Some circulated for decades, while a tiny number somehow survived untouched. That is what makes the rarest examples so desirable. Coins like the 1977 no mint mark penny remind us that treasure can be found in the simplest places, sometimes in the palm of your hand. Today we are diving into a coin that most people would never give a second glance, yet collectors around the world keep their eyes open for it because of one surprising reason. The 1963 D mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. A coin that originally cost just 1 cent, a coin almost everyone has touched at some point in their life, is now known for having some of the rarest and most expensive varieties in modern American coinage. And yes, some of the known examples have brought in staggering amounts, with the top value reaching around $50,894. Imagine finding a penny worth as much as a new car or a down payment on a house. That alone makes this story worth exploring, and today we are going deep into every detail. Before we uncover why collectors chase this penny and what mistakes or conditions make it so valuable, let's take a moment to set the scene. The year was 1963. This was the final full year the United States Mint produced the classic wheat-backed design. No, wheat cents had ended in 1958. But the 1963 Lincoln cent still falls into that fascinating pre-1982 copper era. During this time, every penny was made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. These coins feel heavier, sound different, and age in a completely unique way compared to the lighter copper-plated zinc pennies made after 1982. The Denver Mint was working at full speed in 1963, striking hundreds of millions of these coins. With so many produced, on the surface it seems impossible that any of them could be rare. But that is exactly what makes this year so intriguing. When a coin is mass-produced in huge quantities, the tiny mistakes, the unusual mint conditions, and the incredibly well-preserved examples become the real treasures. Collectors today hunt for three main things when it comes to the 1963 penny: rarity caused by mint errors, rarity caused by condition, and rarity caused by varieties that slip through unnoticed for decades. When any of these collide in a single coin, the price skyrockets. That is how this tiny copper cent reached a value as high as $50,894. And now, let's take our time and walk through every layer of this story with the same curiosity that coin collectors have when looking through rolls of pennies. First, let's talk about the Denver Mint itself. Coins from this mint carry the small letter D below the date. In 1963, the Denver Mint struck over 1 billion pennies. That's a massive number. With so many coins struck, dies became overused, machinery was pushed to the limit, and quality control wasn't always perfect. And whenever something slips, even a tiny die issue or striking flaw, that flaw can create a rare collectible decades later. Every time a penny rolls off the press incorrectly, that penny instantly becomes different from the rest of the billion. The most expensive coins today often come from these small production quirks. For example, imagine a die being slightly misaligned or cracks forming on the die after long hours of use. A cracked die can leave raised lines on the surface of a coin. These raised lines, known as die cracks or die breaks, can sometimes form dramatic shapes. One of the most famous kinds is the cud, a large chunk of metal where the die has broken away completely. Some 1963 pennies with large cuds on the rim, or on Lincoln's portrait, have sold for hundreds, or even thousands of dollars depending on size and location. The bigger the cud, the higher the value. But the real jaw-dropping prices come from the extremely high-grade coins that have survived more than 60 years without a single scratch, mark, or sign of wear. Imagine a coin struck in 1963, placed into someone's drawer or a small stash of saved pennies, forgotten for decades, and kept untouched. No fingerprints, no rubbing against other coins, nothing that harms the luster. These coins are called mint state coins. Only a tiny fraction survive this way. Most pennies go straight into pockets or cash registers. They travel through the world, they get scraped, dropped, and worn down. But that one extraordinary coin that never circulated, that stayed in its original mint condition, can easily become a treasure worth tens of thousands. That is exactly what happened with the highest graded 1963 penny that sold for around $50,894. It was graded at an extremely high mint state level, a grade that almost no other known coin from this year has achieved. The grading scale goes from poor to perfect, with mint state grades starting at 60 and going up to the ultimate level, 70. Only a miracle coin gets close to that top grade. The expensive 1963 penny we are talking about had booming luster, razor-sharp details on Lincoln's face, beautifully preserved surfaces, and no distracting marks. Coins graded by major grading companies like PCGS or NGC in these elite levels become instant stars of the coin market. Collectors know the difficulty of finding a perfect copper coin because copper is soft and gets scratched extremely easily. So when they see a coin like this, even a simple 1-cent piece, they are willing to pay incredible amounts. But condition isn't the only factor. Era pennies from 1963 have their own story. Off-center strikes are a popular example. These happen when the planchet, the blank metal disc, isn't perfectly centered under the die during the strike. Some off-center coins show only half the design, with a blank crescent shape taking the rest of the surface. A dramatic off-center strike with clear date and mint mark can sell for hundreds or thousands depending on how much of the design is missing. The more dramatic and clean the error, the more valuable the coin becomes. Double die errors can also appear in some 1963 pennies. This happens when the die itself makes 2 impressions instead of 1 during the hubbing process. The doubling usually shows on the date, mint mark, or letters like Liberty and I in God We Trust. A strong doubling can instantly elevate a coin's value. Collectors love visible doubling because it's a true minting mistake, not damage from circulation. The better the visibility, the higher the value, especially if the coin is also in high mint state condition. Now let's move slowly through another fascinating layer, the story behind why 1963 pennies hold a special place historically. This was the last year before the U.S. Mint transitioned from engraved master hubs that had been used for the Lincoln cent design for decades. The look of the coin, the finer details in Lincoln's hair and the wheat stalks in earlier years, and the lettering style, all have subtle fingerprints of mid-20th century minting techniques. Even though the reverse had already changed to the memorial design in 1959, the 1963 coins still reflect the old craftsmanship. Collectors love coins from transition eras because they act like bookmarks in history. The early 60s were full of change in America. Everything from politics to technology was rapidly shifting, and coins from that era capture a small piece of that story. When viewers come across a 1963 penny today, they might just toss it aside or let it sit unnoticed at the bottom of their jar. But the truth is, every one of these coins has the potential to be something special. Maybe it carries a minor error that adds a few dollars to its value. Maybe it has sharp details that could place it in a high mint state category. And yes, maybe it's one of the rare ultra-high-grade survivors worth tens of thousands of dollars. The fact that this possibility exists keeps collectors excited and searching. Let's imagine for a moment that someone watching this video has a jar of old pennies sitting at home. Maybe the jar has been in your family for decades. Maybe it's full of coins someone saved back when everything cost less than $1. If you look through those coins carefully and find a 1963 penny with strong luster, bright surfaces, no wear on Lincoln's cheek, and no scratches in the fields, you might be holding something valuable. The first step is to examine the coin under good light. Tilt it slowly and see if the luster flows evenly in a cartwheel pattern. This is the sign of an original uncleaned coin. Cleaning coins destroys their value and breaks the natural luster pattern, so collectors avoid cleaned coins completely. Next, study the details. Look at Lincoln's hair and the lines above his ear. If the details are crisp and well defined, your coin might be a high-grade candidate. Look at the fields, the flat surfaces around Lincoln's face. Are they clean and free of marks? These smooth areas are where flaws show up the most, so a clean field is a great sign. Then, check the rims. Are they full, sharp, and well struck? A well-struck coin has a bold rim that doesn't fade or look weak. Once you examine these details, check for any possible errors. Even a small die crack or a slight off-center shift can raise the value of the coin. Today we are talking about one of the most surprising and valuable modern Lincoln pennies that almost nobody expects to be worth big money. The 1978 no mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny might look like an ordinary copper coin from your pocket, but this tiny piece of metal has shocked collectors with auction prices reaching as high as $80,627. Yes, you heard that right, over $80,000 for a regular-looking 1978 penny, and today we are going to dive deep into why this happened, what makes this coin so rare, how you can identify a valuable example, and the entire history behind this incredible coin that changed the way collectors look at modern-era Lincoln cents. before we start, imagine this for a moment. You are going through your old change jar, maybe organizing coins from your childhood or checking a roll of pennies from the bank, and suddenly you notice a 1978 penny. You think to yourself that it is probably just another common coin. But what if that coin is actually one of the rarest high-grade examples known today, the type that collectors compete for in major auctions? The type of coin that can turn a single cent into tens of thousands of dollars. That is the magic of the 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. Let's begin with the history. The year 1978 was part of the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, which began in 1959. These coins were minted for everyday circulation, not for rarity, so millions and millions of 1978 pennies were made at the Philadelphia Mint. Philadelphia coins at that time usually did not carry a mint mark, which is why you see no mint mark on the coin. So on the surface, nothing seems special. But rarity does not always come from low mintage. Sometimes rarity comes from extreme condition, errors, or exceptional preservation. For the 1978 penny, the biggest reason for insane value is grade. High-grade examples, especially those graded mint state 67 or higher, are almost impossible to find because most 1978 pennies circulated heavily. The copper surface easily develops wear, scratches, dullness, or small marks that limit the grade. So when a perfectly preserved example appears, collectors go crazy. Now let's talk about composition. The 1978 penny is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. These copper cents naturally age with time. They get darker, they react to the environment, they get tiny scratches even from touching other coins. So finding one that remains bright red, shiny, and nearly flawless after more than 4 decades is extremely rare. That is why grading companies like PCGS and NGC place huge value on the highest grade examples. And this is exactly how one 1978 no-mint mark penny reached the unbelievable auction price of $80,627. It was graded at the top of the population, meaning almost no other coins were as perfect. Collectors are willing to pay insane amounts for coins that sit at the very top of the grading scale because these are the coins that cannot be replaced. Once-in-a-lifetime finds. Now let's explore what makes a 1978 penny valuable and how you can check yours. There are several factors you need to pay attention to. The first is color. Lincoln cents are classified as brown, red-brown, or full red. A full red coin means it has remained bright and preserved without darkening over the years. Full red examples from 1978 in extremely high grades are the most valuable. The second factor is strike quality. A sharply struck coin shows clear details on Lincoln's hair, beard, and the lettering. If the strike is weak, the coin is less valuable. The third factor is surface quality. No scratches, no contact marks, no stains, no spotting, no fingerprints. Even a tiny mark can drop the value by thousands of dollars in high-grade coins. This is why so few 1978 pennies get very high grades. The fourth factor is rarity in population reports. This is extremely important. Grading companies publish population reports showing how many coins have been graded at each level. For 1978 pennies, the highest grades have almost no entries. That means collectors competing for registry sets want the best examples available. And when 2 or more determined collectors compete, the auction price skyrockets. Now let's talk about potential errors on 1978 pennies that can make your coin worth even more. Some collectors have found double die obverse errors where the lettering Liberty, or In God We Trust, appears slightly doubled. Very light doubling can add value, while strong doubling can make the coin highly valuable. Also look for die cracks, which appear as tiny raised lines on the coin. Although most are minor, some dramatic cracks can bring premium prices. Off-center strikes are another valuable error. If the design is not perfectly centered, value increases depending on the percentage of the off-center. Finally, look for clipped planchets where a small piece of the coin's edge appears missing. These errors are collectible and bring extra value. Let's move deeper into the history and collector interest. The Lincoln Memorial Cent design was created to honor Abraham Lincoln on the 150th anniversary of his birth. The reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. This design remained in use for 50 years, from 1959 to 2008. By 1978, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies annually, because the cent was widely used in everyday cash transactions. However, high circulation means fewer coins survive in perfect condition. People used these pennies for decades. They went through pockets, cash registers, coin counting machines, and bank bags. Almost all got scratched, dented, or worn. That is why preserved coins with flawless surfaces are extremely rare. Now let's talk about how you can check your own coin at home. First, place the coin under a bright light and gently tilt it. Look for clean surfaces without scratches. Look at Lincoln's cheek and jawline. These are the highest points where wear appears first. Next, check the fields, the flat areas of the coin. These areas show marks easily. If your coin is shiny, bright, and free from heavy marks, it may be worth submitting to a grading company. Also compare the color. A coin that still has its original bright red tone is worth more. If your coin is brown and dull, it likely won't reach high grades, but it can still be valuable if it has an error. Now let's talk about why the 1978 penny market suddenly exploded. Modern collectors are building registry sets, which means they want the highest graded examples of every year. When a new highest grade appears, collectors rush to bid. That is exactly what happened with the $80,000 coin. The rise of online auctions and increased awareness of rare coins has pushed prices even higher. Many people now search through pocket change and bank rolls hoping to find valuable coins. That means the hobby is growing and rare coins are becoming more desirable. Imagine how life-changing it would be to find a coin in your house worth over $80,000. There have been stories of people finding rare high-grade pennies in old coin jars, in their parents' collections, or even in unopened rolls from the bank. The 1978 penny is one of those coins you should always check carefully. Most 1978 pennies are worth only 1 cent, but a perfect example can bring life-changing money. Let's talk more about the copper composition. In 1982, the U.S. Mint switched from copper to zinc pennies because copper prices were rising. That means pre-1982 pennies like the 1978 version are made of real copper and naturally attract collectors. Copper coins last longer, but they also react with moisture, air, and oils from hands. That is why handling pennies with your fingers can damage them. If you find a nice coin, always hold it by the edges. Now let's explore the demand behind this coin. Why do collectors pay so much for something so small? The answer lies in competition, rarity at the highest grades, and historic interest. When collectors build the best set, they want the highest graded coin for every year. If only 1 or 2 examples exist in the top grade, the price goes up dramatically. For 1978 pennies, the number of top grade examples is extremely low, making competition fierce. Let's go deeper into market value. The record price of $80,627 came from a high-grade red example that was considered nearly flawless. Lower grades such as MS-66 may bring hundreds of dollars. MS-67 can bring thousands. But MS-68 and higher can bring tens of thousands. That is the power of condition rarity. Now let's explain how grading works. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70. A grade of 70 means perfection with no flaws visible even under magnification. For a 1978 penny to reach grades like MS-67 or MS-68, it must be almost perfect. Professional graders use bright lighting and magnification to detect even the smallest imperfections.